Hello, folks. This is Jeff Davis with the legendary Jeff Davis Show from Central Texas, USA. And I love Mike Hansen Archives. Peace out, baby.
Well, hello, folks. Stay tuned right here on this channel, Hansen Archives, for more classic Alex Jones, Jeff Davis, and all the other good patriots fighting the good fight for the last 25, 30 years, and hopefully death to the New World Order. Stay tuned right here. Be sure to write us there at that address if you can help us get these archives up quicker, and our phone number's there if you need to get a hold of us. Thanks a lot, and God bless. Continue to watch our ongoing series here on Mike Hansen Archives and Hansen Archives.
Hello, Austin, Texas. We are back. This is May the 5th, Monday, May the 5th. And as promised, it has been getting promoted over the airwaves. We have a factional president of the Republic of Texas in the studio with us this evening, and he'll be with us for 3 hours.
I'm going to play that little recording first right now.
Okay, go ahead. Let me just bring into the studio, or bring actually a second or third time anyway, Archie Lowe.
Third time.
And I know you just did a nice job on Art Bell, I was told.
It was a marathon.
And
it was fun. It was good.
Archie, I want to make sure that you get, we got a lot of time, but I want to, of course, we've had this recent ordeal. Do you want to comment on that first, or
Well, my whole comment,
sure.
My comment at this point, I'm just glad it's over as much as it is. I just heard that they have now, shot one of the two guys that was, had left the house there. But I'm just glad that the ones that are out safe are out, and that they didn't kill them.
Would you say then that McLaren and them, my guess is they're just going to end up a bunch of political prisoners, wouldn't you say?
As far as international law is concerned and the documents that we have filed with the world, they are international prisoners. They are prisoners of, I guess we could almost consider them prisoners of war. But they are political prisoners, sure.
Did it come out, Archie, the way you'd have liked it, or?
No, not at all. And this is something Mr. McLaren and myself had never planned on. We worked very closely together, Jeff. I mean, we worked for many, many hours and many, many days and many, many weeks on research, and creating documents and filing them with The Hague in the Netherlands, filing them with the United Nations, filing them with all nations of the world. And this was from day one to be a peaceful, lawful political process. And somewhere back around last September, things began to go awry. Mr. McLaren began actually separating himself from us and actually initiating and creating documents outside the review or the permission of the council, and it just kept getting worse.
We were talking outside here, and you mentioned that you suspect there may even be some plants.
Well,
inside
it's a suspicion. I can't prove it. I do not have the manpower, the expertise, or the funding to do background investigations like that foreign nation up there, the United States, can do. I cannot, but it seems like everything that could go wrong did go wrong after two gentlemen showed up. And it was from there that we have our factions today that we have. It is from those gentlemen's input or guidance or advice to Mr. McLaren that this standoff up in the Davis Mountains occurred. But there again, it is only my suspicion. I can't prove it. I don't know who these gentlemen are. We don't know where they came from or anything about them.
One other thing that I had noticed, Archie, in the process, we at this program had attempted to call the DPS Friday. Now we didn't know how long this thing was going to last. But we had attempted, we called it noon, and we called the DPS Public Information Office. And we had asked them, because all we were getting was just every day, the Republic of Texas against him, his lawyers against him. Every day it was something new, the charges. So we wanted to go and invite Rick to call in on this program Monday. and asked them if they'd give them a phone line to do it. And I guess they finagled over it a couple hours, and by 2:30 they denied us access. And this, to me, this is the most impelling when you start talking about control of information and why so many people may not like the Republic of Texas, and that is that they're only getting the pre-approved script on the Republic of Texas.
Well, that's what we saw at Waco also. You see, not only are we getting a pre-approved script, we get the pre-approved, authority figures too, see. So, things like that is just something that we're tired of. We're tired of it. We really are.
The media, and this program did it, but the mainstream media should have demanded. That's not freedom of the press, Archie.
No.
When you're said no, you can't get information here. You go over here to get your information.
Right. The press was 11 miles away from actual site of the conflict. 11 miles, and they had to rely on their spokesman, the chosen spokesman, to give the chosen words.
Right.
See, that's what we're getting tired of. That's what we're getting fed up with. They're not only controlling what we get through the media, they're controlling our lives. You go here, you can't go there. You do this, you can't do that. If you want to do this, you have to have a license. Money, 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 money. And more people are beginning to understand, and on their own, study documents, study processes, study history to find out what's really going on. We have some educated people coming in.
We need to do that thing real quick.
Okay, what do you want me to say?
Recording.
We're
going to go ahead and do this.
Do a recording. Okay.
Yeah, it was actually an intercept from a
Shortwave?
shortwave. Yes,
Good.
where Rick was yelling out about the embassy's been invaded by hostile enemies, and that's just exactly what had happened.
In essence, yes.
That's just absolutely exactly what had happened. I personally saw this on CNN. So, with that, are we ready with it, or okay?
Yesterday at 8:54 p.m.
I don't know what that is.
Mayday, hostiles invading Republic of Texas Embassy. We have hostiles in the woods. This is a mayday call to any nation of the world. Any nation of the world, we are being invaded. Is there any nation of the world that can provide assistance? Apparently we have hostile enemies in our woods. Please bring assistance. Please come in. We are asking for aid from any nation friendly or in treaty with the Republic of Texas.
He sounded kind of desperate, I think.
Yes.
He didn't sound like the Rick McLaren I saw speaking in Tyler and walking around. He just seemed, why would they all were? They were all in there. Their food and water supplies were probably very limited or restricted.
I'm surprised they got the message out. I'm surprised.
Archie, let's get into some things now. First off, I appreciate you coming on the program.
It's my pleasure, and I thank you.
After all, now there was a meeting in Kilgore yesterday, which
Yes.
you were. How did you?
Well, I was a bit disappointed. What we had hoped, because of the emergency of the hour, we had hoped that we could begin reconciling the differences between the factions. There are, at this moment, really 3 different factions. And I'd hoped that this rally would be an impetus to create some kind of dialogue between the factions so that we could begin some kind of merge or coalition or unity. But it didn't happen that way. It turned out to be more or less a rally to support the idea that Texas is a nation and we have the right to independence and all this other stuff. But the issue of unity wasn't really discussed. And it may be that it was a good thing unity wasn't discussed at the time, because there were cameras literally from all over the United States and Texas, and it was an awesome media event. I think there were almost as many media people there as there were citizens of Texas. There were about 400 people there. So it was basically a rally, and I think a lot of people hadn't seen each other in a long time, and it was pretty good. Like I said, about 400 people there. And it was something that we did not get to address what I think really is the issue that is so vital right now. But afterwards, after the meeting, because I did think it was that important, I begin, grabbing hold of certain ones, and before we get out of here, we've got to have some kind of discussion about a unity, because we're fractionalized and we're not effective, and if we don't take ourselves seriously, if we cannot establish a strong government, there's nobody in the world, no one is going to take us serious if we don't take ourselves seriously. So we've got to get involved. So at the very last minute, there was a meeting of the three different factions. And it was what I thought it might be, and I'm glad we did it in private. It was mostly finger pointing. You're wrong, I'm right. You're wrong, I'm right. I'm right, you're wrong. And it just kept going around in a big circle. So finally, calmer heads did prevail, and a committee, one person from each faction, was selected to begin negotiations with the rest of the so-called council members. So they should be reporting. That committee should be reporting back fairly soon. But even if that doesn't work, I have one other hope. It was reported after we had that meeting, the citizens themselves have demanded a convention, and they have already set a date for this convention. The convention will be held at some location on June the 8th, and they are demanding that all council persons be there, because the idea of this convention is not for unity, but to elect a new provisional government or a new government, whatever the convention decides. Because if you go back to Article 1, Section 2 of the Constitution, political power is inherent in the people, and they have the inalienable right at all times to change, alter, or abolish their form of government in any manner they may deem expedient. So it's in the hands of the people. They are calling a convention. They are going to elect a new government. And I'm glad. If it takes that, then I'm for it, because we've got to establish ourselves as a strong government, or no one is going to take us seriously.
Well, just for people. I mean, there are a lot of people that have been hearing about the Republic of Texas the last week, but they're getting a different. They're getting one view of it. What do you? Why are you doing it? Why are you in there fighting?
Well, I was fighting this before there was a Republic of Texas. I was fighting it back when I didn't know much better, and I was a Democrat. I was fighting it when I was getting pretty independent and forceful, and I became an independent. And later on, I was very conservative, and I joined the Republican Party. So I've been there all the time, studying political science, studying political history. I made a very, very grave mistake. I picked up a copy of the Constitution of the United States, and I read it. And when I read it, I says, this cannot be. This is not the kind of government we have. Look what they're doing. They're violating the Constitution. They're unlawful. That was my big problem. So I've been involved for a long, long time. And the Republic of Texas thing came along. I said, wow, what a fantastic independent to solve, what a fantastic opportunity to solve all of our problems at once.
What does it mean to you now? I mean, other than freedom is just kind of can be somewhat vague. What do you? Is that basically why you think so many are involved in it, or?
Well, I think there's as many reasons to be involved as there are citizens of the Republic, because the people I've talked to, there's no people alike. You can generalize by listing certain things that they all have in common, but there's no two people going to be the same. But we're talking about freedom in the international market, freedom of industry and businesses and farmers to take care of themselves, and they're not burdened under rules and regulations and requirements and policies, or they don't need a license, or things like that, or permission, or they're not fearful that something will be taken away if they violate some law they don't even know about. So it's a lot of it is that. A lot of people saying, well, it's the burden of taxes we want to be out from under, because half of everything we actually make is taken by taxes. I was here even on Rush Limbaugh. He was saying today that today coming up June the 1st will be finally that tax freedom day. Everything you make to that point is taxes. Well, I can remember as a kid growing up, boy, it was if everything before April, By April, you had your so-called requirements and your taxes paid, but not anymore. Now it's June. And these so-called tax cuts that are going on in the United States right now is going to be even a greater burden because they never tell you the truth up there. How else then, can they do what they do? They've got to give you some smoke and mirrors and make you believe you're getting a good deal. So the people, it's varied. A lot of people say, well, this thing with a driver's license or a car tag or, the man that I wear a helmet when I ride a motorcycle, just innumerable, and we could just go on and on and on with this. But,
say what where do you want to see it go? I mean, other than unite, you say, right? And we had several of the members on here last week, or maybe it was last week, I think. David Johnson. In fact, you called in, I believe. Yeah.
Right,
and we had several members from all the factions here, and I was trying to call for some type of unification because let's face it, this new world order that's beating down on us. They're not. They don't take no. I mean, they mean business. So if the Republic of Texas, as you said, is going to be a viable resistance to some of these shenanigans, I believe they need to come together.
I think if people knew honestly what's going on, if they knew what you and I know, really and truthfully, they would be scared to death. I believe that people would begin to panic. And I don't want to cause panic, but I want people to become educated. I want people to know the truth. It's like I was telling you outside a bit ago, we were talking, truth is a wonderful thing. Truth does win friends and influence people. You put truth out there, and you don't have to remember anything. But if you start lying to people, you have to remember everything. That's why so many people get caught in lies. They can't remember. But as long as you tell the truth, it just keeps going and going and going. There's no problem.
Yeah, I agree with you. Do you want to try to take some calls, or do you want to? Do you got anything else you'd like?
No, I'm just infatuated with the Republic of Texas. But I guarantee you, one of these days, and I hope it comes soon, when the people of Texas, as a nation, can stand up and elect its government, and I can quit. I want to go back to my front porch. I want to go back playing with my dog Wolf. Yeah. I want to go fishing. I want to work on my farm. I want to ride my horses. I want to, I want to feed my cows. I just want to do regular people stuff. Yes.
Yeah, I agree.
So come on, people of Texas, get involved. I want you to run the government, not me. Come on.
Did they get your number? Did they have a number to give out?
I gave them the card, yes.
Okay.
That should be up in a little bit.
Okay, folks, we got Archie Lowe, who is one of the three the factional presidents of the Republic of Texas.
Actually, two, because the Boris fella, I can't think of his name, the person that was elected on April the 19th resigned a couple of days ago.
Well, what about, who would actually be with McLaren?
I think his name was Boyce something or other. I've never heard of him. But that was the guy. See, Mr. McLaren sent out 4,000 ballots before April the 19th. And on April the 19th, they had all the ballots back, they said, and they counted them all, etc. And I asked one of the gentlemen yesterday, well, how many votes out of 4,000 did you get? And he said, oh, I don't know. I said, how much did your opponent get? Well, I don't know. Well, how do you know you won? Well, Mr. McLaren told me I won. I said, well, how many votes did I get? Well, I don't know. I know I got some because people have been coming up to me and telling me that they used the write-in and wrote my name in and sent it in. So I know I got some votes. That has never been made public. So you do not have a lawful election until you can publish results, right?
Absolutely. That's what the other side does.
Right.
Okay. Archie Lowe, factional president. How many other than that? Two?
Just Johnson, Mr. Johnson, myself. Right.
Well, what about the people that were listening to McLaren or under that?
Well, that president that was elected under Mr. McLaren, Boyce, resigned.
Okay, so that's kind of not the name.
That's a mute point right now. Right. Okay. And I understand there may be some more that have resigned also. But I don't know. That's hearsay.
We're going to plug your address twice during this hour.
Okay, yeah.
This hour's going to take that.
Yeah, so we're going to limit our calls too, Archie, for that purpose, because this is going to replay again. Okay, folks, if you're interested in the Republic of Texas, Archie Lowe's faction. It's P.O. Box 437, Rice, Texas, and that's Texas Postal Zone, right?
It's a Texas Postal Zone, yes.
75155-903-326-4684. And that's your website? That
Oh, yes, it is.
Texas.bynet?
Bynet.
And
Stay tuned right here for more
let's go ahead and
classics
try a call real quick.
on this channel here, Hanson Archives. But to fund this station, I'm offering, if you send us $25, we'll send you a signed copy of Bohemia Grove Cult of Conspiracy. It was forwarded by Tex Mars that just recently passed away. Also, Alex Jones has a chapter in here. And you know that's good. There's us in our younger days. But on the address that you see, send us $25 and we will send you a signed copy, or give us a call at 830-672-3089 and you can put it on a credit card. We'll send it right out. But that's what we need to help fund this channel, folks. So help us get all the classics uploaded to YouTube. We got hundreds and hundreds of old Alex Jones and Jeff Davis and a bunch of other patriots that we need to upload. About 25-year-old tapes.
And somebody I've got to get on with us. This book was always on print on demand. Now it's been expanded and Tex Mars has written a forward to it. It is the best and most comprehensive book on Bohemian Grove, and it's written by Mike Hansen, my old camera guy, who basically, put all this together. And I never promoted it because it cost so much because it was print on demand. This should be a less expensive book. It's a big book, but by print on demand, it's so expensive. Well, Tex has now printed up a bunch of these. So we have them. Mike finally got it published by Tex Mars, big publishing house, which is one of the most all-time selling authors of all time. Did you know that about Tex Mars? These guys sold 100 million books or something. It's pretty crazy. But side issue or something like that. I mean, he used to write the armed service training manuals that they would take the test for decades, so that's why he's so many in print. But I'm now ranting off into a factoid. Bohemian Grove, Cult of Conspiracy, Mike Hansen, forward by Tex Mars, is now available at InfoWarsShop.com. If you want all the backstory, all the details, all the little factoids about our infiltration and so much more, there is no other book like it. There is no other book like it, and that's what we carry at InfoWarsShop.com. We carry the things, there's nothing else like it. We have the guests that are the best, the most informed. We have the researchers, the economists that have the best track records. We are about reality. Mainstream media could get it right if they wanted to most of the time, but there's an agenda there. They're not... CNBC doesn't report, false financial news the majority of the time, as they've been proven to do, getting it wrong because they're idiots. They're zigging when they're telling you to zag. This is a sucker system, and we don't like it. We don't like scammers. We don't like frauds, and so we're here to promote and sell things that then support our operation to keep reaching out to others and creating a platform for folks like our guest that's coming up. So, Clouded Titles at InfoWarsShop.com and Bohemian Grove, Cult of Conspiracy, Mike Hansen, forward by Tex Mars. This is just out, this new edition, available at InfoWarsShop.com, or call 888-253-3139, 888-253-3139, or you can also just give us a call, as I said, at that number. But we also have some other numbers posted there on the website, or write to us at P.O. Box 19549, Austin, Texas 78760. Straight ahead. The bankers, they're not just getting trillions in bailouts. They're stealing houses. We'll be right back to break it down. Stay with us, and I'll have some breaking news on the UN gun treaty that's ultra-massive.
With Archie Lowe.
Hey, I have a question, Mr. Lowe.
Yes.
If the Republic of Texas is installed as the rightful government of Texas, will you retain the mockingbird as the state bird?
That's not for me to decide. That would have to come from the people. The people would have to decide. I'm all for it myself, but I can't make those decisions. I'm only president.
He may have.
No executive decisions in the Republic of Texas, I guarantee. I mean, executive orders, I'm sorry. Executive orders.
And now you said you've been all over. How busy has your week been this last week?
I've got very little sleep. I've eaten very little bit, very little, and mostly it's just on the phone, constant. I've talked to absolutely to journalists all over the world, from New Zealand to England, France. We talked to some, I don't even know where they're from. I think they may have been German. Of course, we had some Swedish come in, and I think some were, I didn't talk to them personally, but there were some journalists from Japan there also. So it's been a constant on the phone marathon. One show I was on from 1 o'clock in the morning till 6 o'clock in the morning, and as soon as I got off that, the phone started ringing from other journalists, or TV stations or radio stations, things like that. It's just been continuous.
Do you see some of the media people as well starting to be at least receptive to that there's something wrong out there?
Certainly do, because it's like I say, it's truth. You keep putting that truth out there, and as they understand it and they become educated and they see it as truth. Now, they don't always believe you. They'll go look for themselves. But when they find out that what we say is true, then we've won a friend. And there are a lot, especially some of the local guys that we get to talk to quite a bit, some of the people in Austin or San Antonio or Houston or Dallas, especially Dallas. I live up near Dallas. We've really gotten very, very close to some of those TV reporters up there. And they're beginning to see what's going on, beginning to understand. And I think to the dismay of the national networks, they're actually starting to give us some very unbiased and truthful reporting. So I think it's fantastic. Makes my job easier.
Good, glad to hear. Another caller, you're on the air with Archie Lowe. Hello.
Hello.
Hi, sir.
Am I on?
Yeah, thanks for holding. You're on with Archie Lowe.
The reason I was calling is because it's a comment for Archie, and then I'll hang up and listen. When I was a kid, we had a fort in the backyard. Actually, it was a pretty good sized fort. We built it, and we all had positions, and we all had titles, and but we were children, and it was fun, and I find the whole thing. I find this whole thing rather absurd, and your title, and you've sort of given yourself a position, and everybody's got their little cabinet and all that sort of thing. It just strikes me as absolutely silly, and I'd like to hear what you think about that, and I'll hang up and listen. Thanks.
Thanks for your call.
Well, let me tell you about some more absolutely silly people. There was a group back in New England, or what we call New England now. Actually, we call them the colonists back then, that were so absurd and rambunctious enough to establish themselves as the United States of America. And there were also a bunch of people that were so absurd and stupid as to die in the Alamo. Freedom is something that may seem absurd to some people, but I can guarantee you it is in the heart of a patriot. And a patriot does what he has to do, regardless of whether people see him as a silly person, a ridiculous person, a secessionist, or whatever. We do what we do because we believe in liberty, and we are doing what we can. And honestly, if you don't believe in what we're doing, that's the wonderful thing about freedom. You have that choice. You have that right.
Well, one thing I wanted to ask you about, I was told you were pretty sharp with this, is these allodial titles. Explain kind of where are we at now with the current property tax system? It's basically the old feudalism takeoff, where you don't actually own your property. How does
well, I'll have to admit a lot of ignorance here. I can only tell you about some of the seminars that I've sat in and some of the books I've read concerning it. Allodial title is an absolute ownership of your property. And I guess it goes back to the Magna Carta. The Magna Carta, when it was signed, it also made the people sovereign as the king was sovereign. Okay, the king was sovereign, you couldn't tax the king. The people now were sovereign, you couldn't tax the people. The king was sovereign, he could own land. Now the people are sovereign, they could own land, and they had this allodial title to their land. Now we don't have allodial titles to our land. That's all been transferred out of the state or out of the nation of Texas up to Washington, D.C. or wherever it goes. And now what you have is a deed or a warranty deed. And if you go back to the law dictionaries and you start studying and seeing what they've done to you, actually you don't own your land.
Right.
The state owns your land. That's the reason they can tax it. Recall that if you're truly free, they can't tax you. It's only after you become subject to them do your rights go away. Then you begin having privileges and benefits. So this is the same thing with your car. You don't get a title to your car. You get a certificate of title. The state of Texas holds the title to your car. That way they can require that you wear a seatbelt. They can require that you have insurance, a license, an inspection sticker, 2 headlights, 2 tail, the whole 9 yards.
Here in the land of the free.
The land of the free. You don't own your car. Okay?
Let me go ahead. Let's try another call here real quick. I'm sorry they're so antagonistic so early.
Oh, no, that's fine.
Okay.
Antagonism sharpens the wit, doesn't it?
Okay. Next caller, you're on the air.
Yeah, today I noticed something on newscast that was very irritating to me. Because a long time ago, the University of Texas used to roll down a great big Texas flag to celebrate the Battle of San Jacinto and Texas Independence Day and shoot off the cannons and all this. Well, all the Hispanic students raised so much cane with the UT that they made them take down the flag and all of this. Tonight over there at Woolers Park, the Mexican flag was flying above the Texas flag. And this is Texas. This is not Mexico. And this is something that we are being pushed to the side and everything of this nature. And I'm to a point that our state capitol was sit there on the 15th of September. They celebrate. And now we got Cinco de Mayo. We, the regular, true, native-born Texans in here, you know, you don't have the same right. And that's the God's truth. If you go look at it, your flag is not... When you've got a governor that sits down there that will let them fly a Mexican flag over your state flag, something's wrong.
Well, thanks for your call, caller. Appreciate it.
I'll have to agree, and this is one of the points Mr. McLaren was addressing. And you know, we all have heard about the New World Order. Well, part of this New World Order is to make everything in the world the same. They're doing away with national boundaries. They're doing away with different classes of people. They're doing away with different, it's almost like ethnic cleansing. They're trying to get rid of Texas as Texans. It's genocide. Mm-hmm. And we have a right to exist as a proud national people. And when you start destroying that, it's genocide. I don't care how you do it. And they're trying to make Texans look just like every other person in the world. We can't. We have a culture. We have a philosophy. We have we are indigenous to the land. There's so many things that are involved. It's genocide. That's what they're trying to do. Reduce us to nothing.
One thing that I thought was clearly atrocious act was after those folks come out of the so-called compound, they raised the Texas flag up over there as if that they had been conquered. Did you catch that?
Yes, and honestly, one of the points of Mr. McLaren's surrender was that Burnett's flag, which is the true flag of the nation of Texas, that was brought when Mr. Burnett was first president of Texas. That was Burnett's flag, a blue background, that Texas sky, blue sky, right? And the blue sky color, and the gold star, that was Burnett's flag. And Mr. McLaren said that flag should remain flying. They agreed to it. And as soon as they took him out, they took that flag down and put up the de facto state of Texas flag.
Yeah.
You see, that state flag is a registered trademark. And we cannot use it at all for what we're doing, even though, I grew up in the Lone Star State and the Lone Star flag, right? But Burnett's flag is also the Lone Star Nation, because it is that single star, it is that nation. So we adopted it because it represents the true nation of Texas. The state flag was not adopted officially until 1933, even though it flew over Texas from, I think, about 1843 or 44. But it wasn't actually officially adopted until 1933.
Before we get to some more calls here, let kind of go into the what does the Republic of Texas claim then that Texas was illegally annexed?
Well, there's several points. Firstly, Texas won its independence from Mexico. They were a northern province of Mexico, and they were operating under the Constitution of 1824. That's why we see the red, white, and green flag in 1824 on it that was flown at the Alamo, the Constitution. And that they were the northern province. I think it was Coahuila or something like that, or they were the northern part of Coahuila. I'm not sure. But they were the northern province. So when Mexico began abusing the Constitution, similar to what we see the United States doing to the people right now, Texas declared or began working trying to resolve that, and the answer was that they began sending troops out of Mexico up into Texas, harassing the Texans and taking their guns. Does that sound familiar? Okay. After the Texas independence, the war was fought, and they won their independence from Mexico and established themselves under international law as the nation of Texas, the Republic of Texas. And after that was accomplished, then they had treaties with England, France, Netherlands, Belgium, I think one other one, I'm not real sure which one, but and also some Native American, some peoples also. But this is what happened. They established themselves lawfully as a nation. In 1845, 1844, the people were afraid of Mexico, that Mexico was going to attack them again, to which the United States helped out quite a bit by saying, yes, they are going to attack you, so you guys better join us or you're going to get beat this time. So it was a little thing, they were playing one side against the other. So the treaty that was sent to Washington in 1844 was defeated in the Senate. Treaties are to be ratified by two-thirds, but this one was defeated by two-thirds, 35-16. And once that treaty was defeated, they thought the question of annexation of Texas was over. But later on, after John Tyler was elected as president, they brought into the Congress a joint resolution. Well, it's been proven by court cases that resolutions are no more than opinions. We have an opinion that Texas should be a state. John Quincy Adams says it cannot happen, because the Constitution of the United States only allows to create new states out of either territories or possessions. John Quincy Adams said you'll have to amend the Constitution first to annex a foreign nation. Even today, they cannot annex Canada as a 51st state. Now that Texas is gone, the 50th state. They can't do it. It's unconstitutional. Well, the same thing applied then, but they did it anyway. So when people in 1861 began voicing their opinion, there were several things going on, but they began voicing their opinion that the United States had violated the contract that Texas had, and they were not keeping their word. So the people, by popular vote, voted to remove themselves from the United States and establish themselves as a nation again in 1861. And I think that vote was 46,000 plus to something like 14,000 plus. But then in 1865, Texas was taken captive by the military might of the United States, just like Russia took Poland, Czechoslovakia, Romania after World War II. I think that's when they were taken. Might have taken early. I'm not sure about that point of history, but they were taken captive. So we found that Texas was taken captive under international law, under a thing called the Berkheimer Doctrine. If you're able to, once you become a military captive nation, if you are ever able to regain the strength to overcome your captors, you have a right to reestablish yourself as a nation. And that's where we're headed right now.
That's what the fight's all about, huh?
I hope that was clear. I'm so used to trying to put everything in one sentence that it's a little difficult to talk anymore.
Well, there's a lot of dates and things,
Right.
but the fact is this current problem goes way back.
Right. And we presented to the governor, Mr. George Bush.
Mr. Skull and Bones Bush?
his son, Mr.
Both of them are.
Governor George Bush Jr., sir. And we presented back in, I think it was in January, went to the Capitol building, and we presented what is called, I think it's pronounced Quo but it is documents that, pretty well says you prove that you have the right, you prove that you have authority, you prove that it is lawful for you to do what you do, and it's never been answered.
What about Morales? What's his first? Dan Morales.
Right.
What's your all's perception of him?
Well, we had trouble with General Santana. Now we're having trouble with General Morales. So history does repeat itself, I guess. I think Mr. Morales really, I know he's a sharp man, and he may be an honest man, but I don't think he's read his Constitution lately. When he, issues some kind of subpoena to the internet providers and tells them to provide, from our servers all the names and addresses and email addresses and all this other stuff, which is unlawful for him to do, I think he's sort of stepping out of bounds there. I understand ACLU is going to jump in the middle of this. There's also one internet provider, service provider, that has already filed suit, and that is Overland.net, which was the one that the embassy out in Fort Davis was on. I don't have any ill feelings for Mr. Morales. I just wish that he would recognize that we're only Texans following a political process. All we want is freedom, and that right is guaranteed by the Constitution.
But you would say he's the one that's doing the unlawful.
Well, I think he's doing the best he can with what he's got. He doesn't have a leg to stand on, and I think he's trying to do what he can to keep this from really becoming a popular movement. If you can discredit your enemy, then you pretty well won the battle. But the problem is we have truth on our side.
Yes, sir. That's what I say. And that outweighs all the lies of the world. Because the world is just making up new lies to cover up old lies, and it's a repeated process. I
have no ill will toward Mr. Morales. In fact, I'm sure he's a Texan, and maybe one of these days we could use his help, and we would certainly appreciate it.
Would you say that there's some state reps and some of these people within the state of Texas that understand some of these things and actually have a conscience, or they just brain dead, or they sold out to the establishment, or what?
Well, some of both, but I do believe there are Texans everywhere. We've found Texans in the Rangers. We found Texans in the DPS. We found Texans in local police. We found Texans in local governmental organizations and things. We found Texans everywhere. Unfortunately, a lot of Texans are divided on this, especially, I need to slow down, especially because, the media is not telling the truth. We have probably maybe a 50-50 chance at any given time of getting the truth out to the people, because they're still using words like secessionists, they're still using words like white supremacists, they're still using words like militia, and that it is bogus, it's false, just like the liens Mr. Morales talks about. Bogus, false, fraudulent, that's not true, but yet that is the image that is portrayed. And we're doing everything we can to correct that image, because that's not who we are. We're just plain ordinary Texans, and I don't even eat beans in my chili. I mean, although some Texans do, I don't even eat beans in my chili. But we've got to prove to the people, and that's what we're all about.
What about that one? Do you have any information on that one woman here in Austin? I think her name's Joanne
Turner. I think she filed a mechanics lien. She is not a citizen of the Republic of Texas, even though that's my understanding. We don't have any document that she signed says, yes, I am a citizen of the Republic. She may claim to be. I don't know. That's good. I mean, she's allowed to do that. But she filed a lien because they were taking her property away. And I really don't understand all I know about it, because I haven't been involved in that. But it was over that lien that she filed that caused all of her troubles, I think.
I was told, and this is just secondhand information, but a lot of the so-called liens are being filed in counter of the de facto liens.
Right.
In other words, the real fraudulent liens are coming from the de facto government.
Yes.
Right there she is, in fact. But a lot of these liens are coming from the de facto government. And then the Republic of Texas people are issuing counter liens to protect their property.
In essence, what they're doing, they're fighting back against a corrupt system.
Right, and if the system's corrupt and the courts are corrupt, of course they're going to make themselves appear like they're the legitimate power.
Let's cover 2 points. Firstly, the people that are here in Austin, the so-called lawmakers.
Yeah.
I think it's pure conflict of interest. I think they need to be investigated. I think they need to be impeached and kicked out because the people that are called lawyers are members of what they call the Texas Bar Association.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the Constitution and the way it's set up, the Texas Bar Association is directly related to, directly under, directly associated with, or is part of the judicial branch of the government. And the Constitution specifically states that if you are a member of the executive, you cannot hold an office in the legislative. If you are a member of the legislative, you cannot hold an office in the judicial. So if these are members of the judicial branch, how do we have all these lawyers in the legislative branch? They conveniently forget about that part of the Constitution because people don't know their rights, because the people don't know what they're doing. They assume it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
But they should all go to jail or at least be kicked out of office because all these that are off the legislative branch are holding offices in the legislative. Okay? And
there was like a 13th Amendment or something?
The missing 13th
Yeah,
Amendment.
the missing 13th Amendment, where basically it stated that barristers, I think it's kind of a British connection there or something, if I understand it right, but it's kind of it disallowed attorneys from even holding office.
That is correct. And it had something to do with titles or...
did it just disappear, or what?
Well, it disappeared, I understand, after about 3 burnings of the Library of Congress. It took that much to sort of get out of the way. But people have gone back all over the United States, different states, and found copies of constitutions where that amendment was in there. But in the ones we have today, it doesn't read the same.
Do you realize, Archie, that the actual U.S. Constitution was officially suspended in 1933?
Yes.
I mean, the enemy makes they throw it out as a I don't know how they use it. Well, this isn't Constitution. This is, but it's a fraud. They don't know. I mean, they don't do anything with that Constitution.
One other point I'd like to make about the legal system, judicial system. So if you have a suit brought against you or whatever, and you unfortunately wind up in their courts, the judge is the Bar Association. He's a member of the Bar Association. The prosecuting attorney is a member of the Bar Association. And your defense attorney, he's a member of the Bar Association. Here these 3 guys are brother Bar Association members, sort of like Brother Masons, I guess.
Right.
You think you're going to get a fair trial in their court? They're going to agree amongst themselves how they're going to handle it, how they're going to do this, how they're going to do that. It's to their advantage. That way, if I spill hot coffee on myself and I manage to get a $10 million settlement, majority of it goes to that lawyer, right?
Yeah, it's a fraud. It's a scheme.
It's a scam.
We interviewed Humphrey Heidelberg, who was one of the jurors for McVeigh, and he says that was nothing but a kangaroo circus.
Sure.
And they wouldn't allow his witnesses subpoenaed. The whole thing was a staged deal. It's like
especially federal judges, they're God.
Yeah.
They can tell you who can come into the court, who cannot, what evidence you can bring in, what you cannot. They can say what the jury can hear, what the jury cannot hear. And this is not the way justice was originally intended for the people.
Yeah, I agree.
This is fraudulent. It's bogus.
It also, like I say, the one thing I really learned over this past incident, though, was this denial of access for the media. I mean, there's no way we should allow the DPS to tell us that we don't have access to those people at Fort Davis. There's no way we should allow that. And they literally told us that you have to go to their man. Mm-hmm. This is criminal. This is absolute criminal. This is not freedom and they use this cloak of investigation. Sure. Well, the investigation is intensive now.
So I understand that the reporters that were at Fort Davis were actually about 11
miles back
from wherever the conflict was taking place.
Yeah.
And all the information
Real freedom of the press. Yeah. Real freedom of the press. Yeah. Right. Mm-hmm. Next caller, you're on the air.
Hello there, slaves. How's it going?
Good.
Listen, I wanted to comment on something Jeff just said there. Jeff, the reason that they don't let them close to that place is because there's booby traps and bombs over there. I mean, at some point in time, we have to do things against our will, you know, for our protection, much like the way we have to give out our phone numbers before we can speak to you.
Wait a minute, brother. Wait a minute. That's not what I was referring to. I was referring to the fact that we had put in a call to the DPS on Friday at noon to ask permission for Rick McLaren to call in on this program tonight. Of course, we gave our phone number. It's not relevant now, but at the time it was. And they fluttered around with it for a few hours, and they finally come back and said we don't have access. But then what amazed me is just as much as that I talked to some of the statesmen, some of the local media, and they don't even have access. Right. So the only information you're getting is they're saying you don't have access to the people where all these charges and accusations are going on. Think about that. I mean, all these charges and accusations going on about these people all over the world, but they don't get their. I mean, I wanted to know how much food and wire they had in there. Right. I want to know why they didn't like their attorney. I mean, there was a lot of unanswered questions.
We've been told booby traps, bombs, explosive, blah, 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 blah. Again, we have to take Mr. Cox's word for it. No one has seen that.
That's not what I was. I wasn't requesting to go out there. I was just asking them to open up a phone line.
We did the same
and let
thing
him call in here
by writing letters to Mr. Cox. He wouldn't acknowledge our letters. We made phone calls and talked specifically with gentlemen in the FBI. They wouldn't even acknowledge our phone calls. We believe that we had a chance because we know Mr. McLaren. He was our friend, and still is. I will add.
Yes.
That we possibly could have helped out in some kind of negotiation, but no. They're the federal judges. They're God. They can decide who sits on the jury and who sits on what witnesses come in, etc. They decide what you're going to hear.
Right.
Bombs? I don't believe that. Why did they keep them away from Waco? Nobody ever said anything about booby traps or bombs there, but yet they were several miles.
That's right.
From Waco. Right. They don't want the people to see what's going on. They don't want light shown on what they're doing.
That's right, and they also don't want their position, the other Rick's and these other people's positions spelled out.
And when there is a controversy, they investigate themselves.
Yeah, they're investigating. There you go. They investigate. There you go. Boy, that's perfect.
People, you better wake up to what's going on.
Okay, next caller, you're on the. There's Hoppy Hildeberg right there. He's the one we were just talking about. We did an interview with him. Okay, next caller, you're on the air.
Hello.
Hi.
When the new Republic of Texas is formed, will you please legalize marijuana and stop the incarceration of all marijuana prisoners? And please stop the building of these prisons. I've been down there twice. It is a waste of time. Put the money into education and to cleaning up the environment. This prison scam is a waste of money. Multi-millions of dollars have been stolen by legislative type people, and it goes in their pocketbooks. They go down to Padre Island. But please, legalize marijuana. We're good people too.
Thanks for your call. What do you got to comment on?
I certainly do on this one. Republic of Texas magazine had a very good article on that. We believe, because the way Texas was originally established and the way the United States was established, I might add, under the law, there's no victim or there's no crime unless we have a victim. Now, under the law, you have to either harm a person, his property, or his reputation. So if I'm driving down the street on my motorcycle with no helmet, who's the victim there? Now, I agree it's a good idea to wear my helmet. I agree with that. And probably given free choice, I probably would most of the time. But there again, it is my choice. It is my right, not my privilege or not my benefit. We've got to understand that. I think that one of the most outstanding aspects about this thing called marijuana is not the idea that you can roll it up and some people smoke it. I think the best idea is that if we grew that as a cash crop in Texas, you could just pretty well, eliminate destruction of rainforest, because that's where they're, tearing down or cutting down so many trees for wood or pulp or paper or whatever. The best paper in the world is made out of the hemp plant.
Declaration of Independence.
Right. It's an awesome thing, and you can grind up the little fibers and pellets, and it's a wonderful fuel. They're just literally millions of things. But here, the law is that if you have some of this, whatever it is, then it's a crime. Well, the first thing you do when you start making laws against something, you tend to make it more attractive because now it's forbidden. So once it's forbidden, also, if you catch somebody with you, you can collect taxes. You can start collecting fines, right? And I think if we come to our senses and realize under the laws that originally established Texas, if there's no victim, there's no crime. And if you don't hurt another person or his property or his reputation, you're free as an individual to do what you want to do, but you have to be responsible. In Texas, you could smoke all the marijuana you want to, as long as you didn't harm anybody or their property or their reputation. So if people knew what it would be like to be really free, I'm sure we would have a lot more supporters than we do right now.
Next caller, you're on the air with Archie Lowe, President of the Republic of Texas. Hello.
Yeah, Jeff.
Hi.
Hi, how y'all doing?
Good.
Just an observation. The last show I saw with Mr. Lowe, yourself, and I believe he had his secretary, or the VP on the show. You remember that segment?
Secretary of State.
Correct. One thing that I noticed was when one of the gentlemen was being asked questions by Jeff or the callers, I think the Secretary of State was doing pretty good on the answering part, on the Q&A. However, the other gentleman just seemed to go right along with whatever he was saying. He didn't have his own analog to the questions being answered.
Just keep talking. I can comment to that a little bit. You've got to understand if it's the way I think you're talking about.
I got to give you answers to me.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Well, I want to just mention that we're actually going to put this hour on rotation, so we're just putting up a tag right now. So go ahead and keep talking, Archie.
Mr. Kester is a very young fella. He's not experienced. I was a musician for 20 some odd years. And so being in front of a lot of people or cameras or microphones doesn't bother me a bit, doesn't faze me. But Mr. Kesterson, it scares him to death. Mr. Kesterson, if you'll get on his webpage, texas.by.net, the gentleman is very eloquent and very able to explain himself or communicate with people. He has written some of the most fantastic articles I've ever read. And I just go through daily, every time I hear him talking, really, when he's not camera shy or something, saying, I wish I had said that. He
I noticed he seemed like he was just, I agree with you, Jeff, agree with you on. And it could just be maybe he was a little bit intimidated.
He's a young fella, but I'll tell you what, if you read his stuff on the webpage, you'll see who he really is. I believe this guy has a great opportunity to be a fantastic leader of people.
Okay, next caller, you're on the air. Hello.
Hello.
Hi, sir.
Hey, Jeff. Archie, how y'all doing?
Good. Doing fine.
Thanks for holding. Let Archie know that I support what he's trying to do, and I believe in it. I do believe what McLaren did was probably really bad timing, and I believe ultimately it will be needed to be done, but just the timing was bad. And what you were saying earlier, I believe what I caught was that probably had some people coming in from the inside causing trouble, or probably from the inside of the government trying to cause trouble. Is that so?
Well, he's speculating.
Well, I'm speculating.
I'm kind of speculating that on my own.
We know that he spent quite a bit of time in the military, and he was in Guam for quite a bit of while, and then he sort of just disappeared and reappeared in Utah. So we really don't know who he is or where he came from. But he was supposedly associated with some, I can't think of his name. It was an Indian name, running tall tree or tree or something like that, that he was associated with, who was a known agent of the CIA. A mind control person. So I've got the document. I just received it from Militia of Montana. Mr. John Trotman sent me a copy of it, a little investigation that they had done on Mr. White Eagle, and it appears that he may have connections back there somewhere. But there again, it's just my suspicion.
Also, for those that have a hard time believing that our government does lie, I know I saw Jeff there at the Waco movie here at the Dolby Theater, and I highly support anybody to go to see that, or suggest for anybody to go see that, because it was an outstanding proof. What I feel was a lot of proof of how the government does just stand up, and lie.
Have you seen that Waco?
No,
You've probably been
I've
to.
heard so much about it, but
It's not bad.
It hasn't come to my city yet.
Okay, well, thank you all.
Thank you. Appreciate your call, brother. Appreciate it. Do you want to take a quick break here, Archie, or
up to you?
Just a quick one, yeah. Okay. You call it. Just stay on the line there, and it's just going to be a quick break. I want to go get a quick drink, and it's always a pleasure to have you on, Archie. I really appreciate you taking your time to come down here.
Well, this is always a good trip for me because I really love the people down here. There's a lot of good Texans around Austin, I'll tell you. And every time I get to come down, I meet some new ones. So it's a fantastic opportunity for me.
Yeah, and I do. I think he's a pretty nice fellow myself, but that I guess we shouldn't get personal on all this. Okay, we'll go ahead and try a call here. Next caller, you're on the air. Hello.
Yeah, Mr. Lowe.
Hello.
Just speak with you all briefly about a minute ago. I wanted to ask you a quick question.
I'm sorry, I can barely hear you.
Yeah, Mr. Lowe.
Yes.
I called a couple of minutes ago, and I wanted to ask you a quick question.
Yes, go ahead.
When you all hopefully get the chance to make Texas a republic again, do you all have any ideas regarding a blueprint or what is going to take place as far as like airlines getting in and out, trains, boats? Are there going to be any tariffs imposed on imports, exports? What do you all have in store for the future, like the United States would? Like when we trade overseas or do business overseas in between countries. Do y'all have any sort of blueprint or ideas on how you would tackle that? Because we'd have all these states surrounding Texas, so they would be therefore considered what, an outside country, correct?
True. We're going in what you call a transition period. We're going from point A to point B. And we're not going to get to point B immediately. So we believe that the people themselves have the right to write their own constitution. If we as a government, provisional government, get involved in it, then we're no better than the people we're trying to replace. The people are supposed to do this. So let the people decide how they want to set up their constitution, then the government should implement it. We think that after so many hundreds of years of men trying to create documents, lasting documents to control government and maintain freedom for the people, we think maybe now we have an opportunity to do it because we can see the shortcomings and the failures of those that preceded us. We can't tax the people. You should never tax the people. Recall that the people are sovereign. Sovereign people are not taxed, so the import-export tax would be the way to do it. Currently, if you go by the gross national product of Texas and consider a 1% import-export tax, I think it comes to something like $82 billion. I think we could do quite well on $82 billion. That's just import-export tax. Right now, all the taxes the United States is sucking out of Texas is literally starving us to death, slowly.
Do you know, Archie, that's the way that the national government funded itself?
That's the way it should be done.
Tariffs and trade. But see, now you've got this treasonous globalist world order system.
It's a siphon. It's a vacuum.
And they've created the World Trade Organization and things like this that are just totally treasonous and have taken away their ability to raise revenue legitimate way and regulate trade and commerce, and then they throw this criminal IRS at us.
Well, the admitted debt of the United States is over $5 trillion. And if you consider how they've raided and stolen from Social Security and some of the other programs like that, it's closer to $20 trillion. That debt can never be paid. The whole thing is it's a vacuum. It's a siphon. It's just pulling our wealth, pulling our substance, pulling our blood.
Who's that biggest vacuum?
Who's getting this money?
Yeah,
where is it going?
Yeah, who is it?
Who is the debt? Who do we owe this money to?
I think your professor laid you on that, 15 years ago?
Right. It's the people behind the Federal Reserve. And who owns the Federal Reserve? It's a private company. IBM's a private company. We have companies all over the place. Little companies, Oshman's. I could go on mentioning companies. I don't want to give them too many plugs, but all the private companies. Federal Reserve is a private company. Who are the stockholders? Who is making all that profit? Yeah. And look at the way they do it. All they're required to do. We want to borrow $100 million. They print up $100 million and loan it to us. And they only have to pay for the printing.
That's it.
In the paper.
Yeah, like 2.5 cents
right.
Yeah, it's
But it's real neat because we don't have to pay the principal right now because all we're doing is paying the interest.
Yeah, it's as big as.
Who owns that?
One of the biggest scams in the history of the world, unquestionably.
And people are starting to wake up.
Next question, or next caller, you're on the air with Archie Lowe. Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey, I got some questions for Archie.
Go ahead.
Okay, I guess he kind of lost me a bit back when he said there were no fraudulent liens on the Republic of Texas. So they didn't file any fraudulent liens. And I didn't know if he was saying they didn't file any liens, or they filed liens, they weren't fraudulent, or what was the deal?
Okay, you first, under UCC process, there are only two kinds of liens. They're valid and they're invalid liens. The word fraudulent, bogus, phony doesn't enter into it at all. They're either valid or invalid. It's a lawful process to bring pressure against a debtor. You know, someone owes you something or something. It's a lawful process. But unfortunately, the most unlawful, the most fraudulent, bogus liens that I've ever heard of are the liens at places like the IRS, you know, when they want to take your property.
Okay, but you're dodging the question now.
No, I'm coming to it.
No, he'll get.
I'm getting there.
Okay.
And
don't lose me.
the state of Texas. I'm just telling you what I consider fraudulent liens. But in essence, they're only valid or invalid. So let's leave the word bogus out of it. I mean, just a word I think that Mr. Morales likes to use. Fits his vocabulary, perhaps. I don't know. But this idea that the Republic of Texas is the #1 filer of bogus liens, I would like to dispel that immediately, because as a provisional government, yes, we have filed a lien, one of them, one lien. Back in February, the Republic of Texas officers at that time, Mr. John C. Van Kirk, who was the president at the time, and Mr. Richard Lance McLaren, who was chief ambassador, did file a lien against the state of Texas. It is on the books down there. As far as I know, it is still on the books. And what it was to tie up or make sure that all that had been stolen from the citizens of the Republic of Texas, or the citizens of Texans, those citizens called Texans, was placed back into the hands of the people. This wasn't to the benefit of any officer of the provisional government. It wasn't to the benefit of individuals. The beneficiary on that lien was the people of Texas. So
what
in
about
essence,
all these other liens that people were saying they had filed against their houses?
oh, I do not know anything about it. I can only speak for the provisional government. Now, there's people, citizens of the state of Texas, citizens of the United States filing liens daily. Some of them are valid, some of them are invalid. It's not for me to decide. It's for the courts to decide.
It's a constitutional right.
It is a constitutional right.
It's
and
a constitutional right, but sure, but if there's a whole mess of these Republic of Texas members who just coincidentally happen to be filing a lot of liens that are, in your terms, invalid, and then you seem to be dodging that whole question, saying, well, I don't know anything about that.
Well, I would say if they're invalid, those people shouldn't be doing that. I'll have to agree. They shouldn't be doing that. But as individual citizens, as a government, I can't control those people. They have the right to do what they feel is right.
And now the other question I had is, what about McLaren taking those people hostage in their house? You think that's a good way to act?
No, I do not, and I'll have to explain two different things. Why Mr. McLaren thought it was right to do that, and why I think it was wrong for him to do that. Mr. McLaren was thinking that he was the ambassador of the provisional government of the Republic of Texas. He, on his own, had declared war against the United States. He had declared war against the state of Texas.
There's nothing wrong with that.
No, he had issued documents, had declared war. Now, when you declare war on a nation and you start hostilities with a nation, there are certain rules kick in. So if there are foreign agents or foreign troops on your soil, then under international law, you have the right to self-defense. Mr. McLaren, thinking that he had the right to self-defense under the rules of war because of the belligerent status between the nations, he did what he thought was right and proper and lawful. He was following what he thought was correct.
Yeah, but he was also kind of a bit out of his gourd.
Well, wait, first
not lawfully, not legally, as far as his opinion. But now, what happened, though, was that Mr. McLaren was suspended from office from the provisional government back in February and dismissed on March the 22nd. He was impeached. So he had no lawful standing as a member of the provisional government. Hence, his only standing was that of a citizen.
I thought he was the ambassador.
Pardon me?
I thought he was the ambassador.
No, he was elected ambassador on December the 12th, 1995, chief ambassador. But he was dismissed from office March the 22nd, 1997.
So I guess that treaty ain't any good then. I mean, because he got no authority to sign it, huh?
What treaty are you talking about?
His surrender treaty.
I don't know anything. I've never seen that. I don't know what he was talking about. It was an agreement to surrender. He honestly is still thinking that he has status as an independent. He has diplomatic status as an ambassador of Texas.
But you're saying he didn't, because he wasn't an ambassador anymore.
That's the way I see it. He was dismissed from office on March the 22nd.
Okay. Now the other question I got is, do you guys really think that, I mean, you got a prayer of anyone really taking you seriously?
Did the people back in 1776 have a prayer of anybody taking them seriously, especially King George? No, they didn't. And we are doing the best we can with what we got. We're patriots. We love freedom. We want freedom. We're going to do what we can. If we succeed, great. If we don't, we tried. We did not lay down and die.
That's about the way I feel. You're on the next caller. You're on the air.
Hello.
Before we get to this call, let me just mention one thing that I absolutely refuse to do, because it plays right into the enemy's hands, is get into an endless debate about the character of those people inside there. We need to stay focused, I believe, on what the enemy's doing, and that is
following the most lean.
Yeah, there's your lanes right there. Right there's your lanes. Wouldn't you say? That's your fraudulent, bogus, criminal lanes right there.
Well, I understand that Ms. Turner is in jail right now because she violated the court order. That means some judge says you can't file a lien. Well, that you can't impair liens. You cannot prevent people from filing liens. It's just unconstitutional. So I think what the judge did by taking her captive, so to speak, and that's what he did. She made him mad. He told her not to, and she did it anyway, so he put her in jail. She's still in jail.
Another political prisoner. Yeah,
Look at the lock on the door.
Lots of them out there. Next caller, you're on the air.
Hello.
Hi.
This is getting off a little bit on another tangent, but I think you might find this interesting. I lived in Oklahoma and Arkansas for most of my life, and we always kind of looked up to Texas. Sometimes we resented them, but we always followed them with great interest. But what always amazed me, and I was just dumbfounded by the fact that Texans were hoodwinked by Lyndon Johnson. It's always made me sick. And after I moved to Texas, I started wondering, because something happened back in Arkansas that I think you might find interesting. When Lyndon Johnson and Barry Goldwater were in their contest, a very astute historian here in Texas named J. Evetts Haley wrote a book called A Texan Looks at Lyndon, and the subtitle is A Study in Illegitimate Power. That book was, I wouldn't say censored, but people were buying up these books and burning them, I guess, getting rid of them. And I got a copy of this in Arkansas, and at our business one day, one of the local Democrats, he was big in the Democratic Party, walked in and said, "You don't want that kind of stuff laying around your business." And he picked it up and carried it out. So, of course, that just whetted my interest. And when I got to Texas, I went to the Central Library, and they said, "Oh, that used to be on the shelves, but must be outdated or something. It's no longer here. Maybe you can find it over in the archives." So I went over there, and of course you have to sign in and not leave the building and all that. But I didn't get a copy of the book there, but I did find an address. So I ordered some of these books. And I just wondered, Mr. Lowe, have you ever read this book?
No, but I've certainly heard of it.
Yes, well, J. Evetts Haley is a very, very respected historian, and this is probably the only book, that he ever wrote that you might say is negative or slammed someone. But he had the proof. He lived through this period of time. He worked for Brown and Root, I believe, and he also lived during this era. And I just wanted to, bring this up, that a lot of things went on before that I suppose Texans were brainwashed just like the rest of the country. But it's just always amazed me how Texans fell for Lyndon Johnson, and I think it's just a sad thing. And,
I think it's funny how Texans are falling for any of
it.
Well, that's true. But if you ever get a chance, they have a private library in Midland, I believe it is, named after his wife, and you can order these books. And it's very interesting, so I just wanted to bring that up.
Thanks for calling.
I think one of the most eye-opening books I ever read was, of course, 1984, George Orwell, but he also wrote another book called Animal Farm. And if you look at Animal Farm and compare that parody and actually what's going on today, in the book, the animals took over the farm because the owner was, just a bad owner, right? He was doing some unlawful, damaging things. And we can see how the Patriots took the colonies away from England because they were doing bad things. And when the animals created their constitution, they put it up on the barn so everybody could see it. But later on, because the animals were so busy working, making a living, and keeping the farm going and everything like that, they really didn't pay much attention to what the leaders of the farm was doing. They put the farm in charge of the pigs because the pigs had told them that they were smarter than the regular animals, so, well, you better take care of it because you know. So we'll just go ahead and work and do what we do, and you take care of it. Later on, toward the end of the book, we find out that the pigs were going out late at night, changing the Constitution, adding words, taking away words, and actually putting more burdens upon the animals, while the pigs were beginning to actually walk on their hind legs like real men. So it is quite, I think, an expose on what is going on. If you have an opportunity, read that book, Animal Farm. It's very, very interesting.
Next caller, you're on the air with Archie Lowe.
Hello, am I on the air?
Yes, you are. Thanks for holding.
I had a question about the fact that your guest said that the Declaration of Independence was printed on hemp paper. Is that correct?
I actually said that. It wasn't. It was either the Constitution or the Declaration. It was one or the other.
Well, if it's one or the other, has nobody called the DEA to say that the Library of Congress and the Rotunda of the Capitol is in possession of a drug, and that those should be seized and burned as they burn all drugs?
But they would love to burn that one, wouldn't they?
Well, I mean, shouldn't we do that? It's sitting there under glass, and it has THC in it.
Of course, Archie, you realize this.
I'm not being facetious, by the way.
Yeah, I understand. You realize that this whole drug war is just a phony deal.
It's a phony deal.
Yeah, it's a reason for them, the slave masters, to smash our Constitution, our Bill of Rights,
and destroy the moral fiber of the United States too.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to point out.
In fact, it comes straight out of the Committee of 300. If you studied some of Dr. John Coleman's books, and they're actually manipulating the drug system.
Has nobody called the DEA to tell them that there is a drug in the Capitol Rotunda and there are people in possession of that drug who are Capitol Guards?
Do you think that it's still there, though? I mean, this was the original documents. They could have been replaced by then.
They could have been, but has anybody tested the THC in those documents? Maybe there are other documents. Maybe Washington's letters were all written on hemp paper. Maybe the Madison papers were written on hemp paper.
Well, quite possibly.
Maybe all of that should be seized and burned, and the people in possession of it should be arrested for possession of narcotics.
Good point, I think. What do you think, Archie?
Well, I think because we have those documents existing today is because they were printed on hemp paper, because that is quality paper. That is the best paper in the world. What can I say? If it were on cotton or linen or maybe some of the others, it might still be around, but I know if it was on the old East Texas Piney Woods pulp paper, it certainly wouldn't be around today.
Yeah, the point is, though, that it's printed on hemp paper, and any hemp contains trace amounts of THC, which makes it a drug.
Well, we understand that.
Which means that anybody in possession of it is in possession of a drug, and those people should be arrested, and those documents should be burned. Isn't that correct? Somebody call the DEA. We need help here.
Arrest the whole government, because the government possessed that document.
Well, the USS Constitution had all hemp sails and hemp ropes. Maybe we should burn the Constitution, too. Old Ironside.
There's a lot of truth to that. There used to be some strong rope.
Right.
And, it was immaculate.
Best it was.
U.S. Navy is in possession of drugs.
Yeah. You got. That's a interesting point, Carl.
It would be a multi-billion-dollar crop
Bye-bye.
if we could let the farmers grow it, and it's almost like a weed. It'll grow anywhere.
But keep in mind, Archie, and you know this, but the whole drug thing, it's a smoke and mirrors. The slave masters don't care about that. In fact, they want these people.
They want it. Yes.
They want people to get free on this stuff. The same way they want them in the government training centers, and the same way they. Now,
to say they want them to volunteer for community service, it's just
involuntary servitude.
Right, involuntary servitude.
With that, folks, I appreciate the call. We're going to take just a quick break. Callers, stay on the line there, and be about 5-10 minutes. We'll be back with Archie Lowe, who is one of the. Let's go ahead and get this quick caller real quick to keep her from holding. Here. Go ahead, bring that one up, screen caller up. Hello.
Hello.
Hi, sir.
Hi. I've got a question for Archie. Archie, understand there's a lot of dissension in the ranks within the Republic of Texas, the various factions and some disagreements about the way things should be, and I'm wondering what steps are being taken to unite everybody to make it a little stronger.
Yeah, there was a meeting yesterday in Kilgore. It lasted from about 1 o'clock to about 6 o'clock. And the meeting was more or less, I guess, a rally for the support of the Republic of Texas. People haven't seen people in a long time were there. And I think probably just about as many media people were there as there were actual citizens. There were probably at least, I would figure, around 400 people there. The place would have seated 500, but it wasn't quite full. So I figured about 400 people. After that meeting was over, there were all three factions represented there, men that are supposedly on all three councils. These men met in a room. I think there were probably about 14 of us. We sat in there for approximately almost 2 hours discussing what we could do to bring unity to the provisional government. During this meeting, there was a lot of finger pointing. But there was a lot of good men saying, I'll refuse to point the finger. And I think there were a lot of good relationships developed. But it was determined that there should be a representative from each faction assigned to a committee. There were 3 gentlemen that were assigned then to a committee to begin dialogue with all the different factions so we can bring them back together again. But in lieu of that, after we got out of that meeting, it was announced that the citizens themselves had set a meeting for June the 8th. That June the 8th meeting is to be a convention to elect a new provisional or a new government. So if the existing factions don't get it together, if they can't come to unity, the people will take care of the problem because it is their political right to do so.
And if they elect a new provisional government, are the different factions going to recognize that government?
It would have to, because it is an election of the people. Political power is inherent in the people, and they have the inalienable right at all times to change, alter, or abolish their form of government in any manner they may deem expedient. Political power is in the people, and I want the state government to know that right now. The political power is inherent in the people.
Well, the current state government certainly isn't with the people, but that's a different discussion. The second question I have is,
well, I'm just saying that the people have the right to determine what kind of government they will have and elect it. If they do elect it, then the people, if we as factions aren't elected to that new government, then we'll go off somewhere else and we'll have to be private citizens.
Understood. Second question. The current U.S. government, the current recognized state government of Texas basically makes the rules up as they go along when it comes to legal battles over jurisdiction and territory. I've been following the Republic of Texas for quite a while now, and I don't see any headway being made simply because the bottom line is Texas and the U.S. government's not going to recognize any of the old treaties. I mean, just take a look at the treaties they had with the Indians. So, what makes you think, or why does the Republic of Texas think that you're going to gain any headway fighting this in the court system? And at what point are you going to lay that down and pick something else up?
That's a good point. I agree with
Well,
you.
I think we're at the point now where we're laying down one thing and picking up something else. What we're laying down is the lawful process. We have pretty well exhausted all possibilities as far as lawful process, documents or procedures or whatever. What we're picking up now is education. What we're picking up now is to make this popular. What we want to do is to inform the people what the real truth is and let them decide. I mean, when we first started this thing a year ago last December, we couldn't beg, borrow, or steal anybody to attend our council meetings. Nobody knew who we were. Nobody knew what we were doing. We figured if we had 5 people at a council meeting, we had a big crowd. But recently, there's been crowds 2, 3, 4, 500 people showing up. And now that we've had all this exposure, even though we're having to do a bit of damage control because of what Mr. McLaren has done and given the Republic sort of a black eye, and the fact that we're fractionalized, that's causing another problem. But still, we are beginning to win the hearts of the people because the people are seeing that if they do not have something to back them up, have something to stand on, have something solid, that what's the alternative? The destruction or the collapse of the United States is imminent. And they've got themselves a dictator up there right now, but in the name of the fellow Bill Clinton. They don't even know it, but people are starting to wake up.
But
this is fantastic.
You know, I'm just not going. You know, you have to agree with it.
I agree.
Okay.
I agree. And it breaks my heart what happened because I'm now separated from my friend Rick McLaren.
Yeah. Anyway, and when he was on this show just a few months ago, he was just an ordinary guy calling in and, talking world order and everything else. I mean, I didn't see where there was any, and the thing I want to just keep focusing on is that we were, again, and this happens time and time out, we're only getting one source of information. And so a lot of these people that are calling up with these attacks, they don't know these people, they don't know you, they don't know those people inside that place. They're just basing their opinion on information that they got from the corrupt establishment. So I want to dismiss that as often as I can. Next caller, you're on the air.
Hello?
Hi.
Oh, I had gotten hung up on before. I was the one that asked the question about the unity and how we're going to fight this battle. I did want to mention that the majority of the mainstream press that I read, it goes in one ear, out the other. So, McLaren did what he thought he had to do. That's great. More power to him. It's a drag. He's going to have to be in jail for a while. You start talking about educating the people, though. You've got this mass media machine that is constantly bombarding folks with the version of the story that the powers that be want to hear.
Absolutely.
So how can you combat that? What are you going to do? Go to door? And the whole time that you're out there educating people, you've got this mass media, multi-million-dollar mass media machine on a roll, sitting there portraying the Republic of Texas, some of the other patriot organizations, as lunatics, as backwater hicks, as uneducated dirt farmers that don't like the government because of the IRS or whatever. How do you even have a plan to combat that kind of media that is constantly bombarding
24 hours a day?
24 hours. How can you fight that?
That is a serious problem,
right.
isn't it?
well, there's a mixture of things I'd have to say.
Except one thing, I think truth. Truth, as we were talking about outside, truth will cut through all of these lies.
One thing with that, personally, I feel, is I have a knowledge of a higher power than these people. There are spiritual things going on these people don't know about, they can't contend with, they can't control. The second thing, I probably am one of the most stubborn people in the world. Once I know the truth, I'm like one of those old snapping turtles. I've got it, I'm going to hold on to it.
Yeah.
And as far as, the image I'm going to portray, hey, I'm a Texas boy. I like Willie Nelson. I like Lukenbach. I tell you, I love armadillos and mockingbirds. I love Friday night football, Mexican food, enchilada. You better believe it. I am Texan. I am always going to be
And you don't
Texan.
like a New World Order, do you?
No, I don't.
They can take
no,
a New
they will
World
not
Order.
take Texas away from this Texan. They can say what they want to me about it. But I've got to be one of the most stubborn. But as long as we have truth, then we will win. It's a slow process, but you eat an elephant one bite at a time.
Yeah, I agree. One mind at a time, too. Every mind that you open up to the truth, that's just another one that they don't have.
Your neighbor,
they don't
your
have
next door neighbor, your neighbor down the street, the people you work with, that's where we win the hearts of the people. We tell them the truth.
But that is a serious problem because never in the history of this world, Archie, has there been such a propaganda machine in place coming out of that national, media. And then they, the brainwash. They repeat things over and over and over again to where the people are listening to this and they don't even know that they're being brainwashed.
Well, even
but
those,
it is a problem.
Even those
the
patriots
enemy does control that directly or indirectly. They are controlling the vast portions of information.
Even those patriots of 1776 did not have the support of all the population. They didn't do it. But they were stubborn.
And if nothing else, it's fun to try.
Must have been Texans. It's been rumored that David Crockett, when he came across the Sabine River, on the back of his horse was a little bumper sticker that said, "I wasn't born in Texas, but I got here as soon as I could." Now that's just a rumor. I don't know.
Next caller, you're on the air with Archie Lowe. Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
How you doing? First of all, Jeff, I have a comment, then I have a question. I hate to keep harping on it, but it brings me back to the marijuana issue. I have here in front of me is it's a petition that I got by somebody down on the drag, and I've been involved with it for a while now, trying to get as many signatures as I could, although it's not going to help. And when the guy brought up the fact that it should be legalized here in Texas, as far as like sovereignty goes, and I mean I'm all for that. And one of the reasons I want to let people make people aware that number of American deaths per year that result directly or primarily from the following selected causes, such as tobacco, alcohol, and aspirin. Even aspirin is deliberate overdose is 150 to 1,000 people per year. And marijuana users also have the same or lower incidence of murders and highway deaths and accidents than the general non-marijuana using population as a whole. And in early 1989, a man named Jack Herr and Maria Farrow put this question to Steve Rawlings, the highest-ranking officer in the U.S. Department of Agriculture, who was in charge of reversing the greenhouse effect at the USDA World Research Facility in Beltsville. And they introduced themselves and they asked if you could have any choice, what would be the ideal way to stop or reverse the greenhouse effect? And he said, well, stop cutting down trees and stop using fossil fuels. And they asked, why don't we? And he goes, well, there's no viable substitute for wood or paper or for fossil fuels. And so we asked him, why don't you use an annual plant for paper and for biomass to make fuel? And he goes, well, that would be ideal. Unfortunately, there is nothing you can use that could produce enough materials. And we asked him, well, what if there was a plant that could substitute for wood, pulp, paper, all fossil fuels, make the fibers naturally, make everything from dynamite to plastic, grows in all 50 states, and that 1 acre of it replaced 4.1 acres of trees, and that if you used about 6% of the U.S. land to raise it as an energy crop, even on our marginal lands, this plant would produce all 75 quadrillion billion BTUs needed to run America each year. Would that help save the planet? They asked him, and he said, would that be ideal? But there's no such plant. And they said, well, yeah, there is. There's hemp. And he laughed and he goes, well, never thought of it. I think you're right. Hemp could be that plant if we could do it. Wow, that's a great idea. We're excited at that point, but then he pops off and says, it's a wonderful idea, and I think it might work, but of course you can't use it. And did you know that hemp is also marijuana? I'm like, well, yeah, of course I know, but I've been writing, this guy Jack says he's writing about it for about 17 years. And he's one of them proceeds that Mr. Rawlings said, well, it's illegal and you can't use it, not even to save the world. And he said, no, it's illegal, you cannot use something illegal, not even to save the world. We asked again, stunned, not even to save the world, it's illegal, you can't use it, period. Don't get me wrong, it's a great idea. And I want to go ahead and tell the Secretary of Agriculture that a crazy man from California gave you documentation that showed that hemp might be able to save the planet, and that your first reaction is that he might be right and needs some serious study. What would he say? He goes, well, I don't think I'd be here for very long after I did that. After all, I am an officer of the government, end quote. And I think that's really ridiculous and just a part of it. And some more information. There is a place you can contact for they want you basically to write your senator, but you probably wouldn't. I wouldn't recommend that because that's not really going to help.
Yeah,
that's a black hole. I don't think that would help at all. But here's a good point: is show me, take the United States Constitution. Hey, take the Texas Constitution. What in that Constitution prohibits or allows the government to regulate marijuana or alcohol or tobacco or anchovies or peanuts
or guns?
Or gun. Show me the law in there. It is not there, and there is no reason for our government to regulate anything like that. Any consumable product. They tried that back in, when was it, the 30s, when they did the prohibition against alcohol. They never had a prohibition against marijuana, but they did a prohibition against alcohol, and they had to repeal that. So if that is classified as a drug, and alcohol is, and they had to have a constitutional amendment to prohibit it, then why don't they have to have a constitutional amendment to prohibit marijuana or hashish or any other thing? I don't agree that it's a good idea to do that stuff. I wouldn't do it personally. I want the opportunity to ride down the road on my motorcycle with no helmet. It's my business, not theirs.
I agree. With that, folks, we're going to take a quick break.
I love Mike Hansen Archives.
It's Mike Hansen. I'm sorry to interrupt your classic viewing of all these classic Jeff Davis and Alex Jones tapes and a bunch of other Patriots here on Mike Hansen Archives, our new channel, Hansen Archives, and our newest channel, Waco Archives, which we're putting up the interviews and all the history from the last 27 years of Mount Carmel and what happened over there. All right, I'm waiting for our worker to get here where we can put some more great stuff up on. There's all our tapes over there, and we got a lot more coming. And we're previewing the tapes now where we can put them up on this editing system here. And we got a new station over here which we're going to be putting the stuff up on the computer, and then it will be transferred over here to the editing station. But what I want to talk to you about is how we're funding this. Is I'm offering, send us $25 for my book, Bohemia Grove, Cult of Conspiracy. There's Alex Jones and I in our younger days. Must be nice. Let's see, where is the book? All this stuff. This is all the stuff that's been previewed and getting ready to be transferred over to be edited over here. You got to remember, out of the 2,000 live shows, a lot of the stuff was, we were changing tapes and stuff back then, and nobody's going to sit there and watch slates, so we edited it down to just the great information. Okay, we need your help out there, folks. Send $25 and we'll send you a signed copy of Bohemia Grove, Cult of Conspiracy, forwarded by Tex Mars. This is the second edition. Believe it or not, there's the first edition. That's hard to get a hold of. But Tex Mars edition is fastly becoming a collector's item because he did pass away not too long ago. So send us $25. You can call us at 830-672-3089. And the girl will take your credit card and she'll send it out, get me to sign it and send it out. Talk to Angela. She'll definitely fix you up here at 830-672-3089. And if you would like to write us, it's 901 St. Joseph's here in beautiful Come and Take It, Gonzales, Texas. First shot of the Texas Independence War happened right here. Some of y'all know I related to Davy Crockett, there is the family tree my son did. And we would appreciate any help you can give us to get this historical feat. It's going to be a lot of work. We figured out one time when I was the producer of Jeff Davis and Alex Jones, we did over 2,000 live shows. And there's a whole bunch of other people too, George Humphrey, Steve Lane, and a bunch of other people that's on these tapes too. And a lot of them are not living anymore. So it's very historical. And, you know, a lot of this stuff was talked about 25 years ago when it wasn't very popular to do so. So if you can help us, I would appreciate it. If you can subscribe right down there on your button down there on YouTube. We're also on Twitter and Instagram now. We have hired somebody to help us do all that. All right, anything y'all can do, send us $25 and it will help us fund this operation. All righty, we're going to get back to work here pretty soon. And like I said, this is only 1/10 of the videotapes that we have. The rest of them are over at the museum. All righty, thanks a lot and God bless. And we'll get back to your classic viewing right here at Mike Hansen Archives.
Come on, anybody want to come up here? All right, that's it. All right, come on, who wants to lead? Let Gene go. Go ahead. Yes, sir. All right. God bless the Republic.